think that's one of the things you can do there. Mr. Coffman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Shulkin, the draft legislation for VA care in the community program broadly provides that the DOD would be an eligible provider for community care. First of all, and then I think you talk about a 2-year pilot program for that. Why is a pilot program necessary, number one? Number two, to what extent have you worked with the Department of Defense on this?
Well, the pilot program would be to avoid having to spend a lot of administrative time billing each other. And right now, I think at the end of last year, the difference between what VA and DOD owed each other was like $30 million. And we figured it cost us $40 million to bill that. Just, you know, the DOD is not set up for billing commercial insurance, so the greater requirements are on their end. So we're trying to simplify this process. The reason for a pilot would be to make sure it doesn't get too imbalanced, because they have an appropriation for health and we have an appropriation for health, and we don't want it to fall the burden too much on each other. I happen to think it's going to equal out, you know, that the amount that we'll use DOD and vice versa will be relatively a wash, and that's why I think we could save the taxpayers money by not billing each other.
Okay. So you envision then that U.S. military personnel, active duty personnel, and their families would then utilize the VA system?
Yes, yes, and they do, and we charge them for it, and we send veterans to DOD facilities, and they charge us for it, and so the pilot would be, let's take down some of the administrative burdens and let's see what happens.
Okay. But I think it's fairly limited right now where you're serving military personnel and their families, is it not?
Yeah, and we wouldn't expand. The pilot would not be expanding the eligibility criteria. The pilot would say, where there are areas where we're working closer together, let's make it easier to work closer together and save the taxpayers some dollars. Mm-hmm.
Right. Because I think that there's no question that we have to work to make the VA better, and we've done some things in this committee, like reforming the personnel system, although I think we probably have a little further to go with that. But you really have two very different systems culturally. The active duty military is a solid merit-based system, and you have a unionized workforce in the VA system, albeit somewhat reformed with recent legislation. But so I do have, you know, and we've had patient safety concerns. I'm sure we've had them in DOD, but we've had some fairly significant patient safety concerns in the VA, and we really need to get those cleared up when you're talking about the families of our military personnel. I wouldn't want them concerned about the patient safety issues. We have to clean them up for our veterans, but until we do, I don't want to increase the patient load there.
Yeah.
We clearly have excess capacity on the military side, simply because of the fact that our operational tempo is down right now relative to what it's been. But it could certainly plus up again, where we have a casualty flow much greater than it is today. And so that's going to really vary in terms of the military, the Department of Defense's ability to handle patients from the VA. But I think it's positive for them to do it on the DoD side, because we have so many providers, quite frankly, that because of the fact that the casualty flow is down, that aren't getting experience now. We're trying to get them in ER for trauma, but doing surgery is doing surgery. And so if we can get VA patients in there, particularly those that are service-connected first in terms of priority, I think that would be very helpful.
Yes.
Okay. And again, and on the mental health issue, I just want to say that I get that you're doing a lot of things administratively, but we want to set a policy that's permanently in motion beyond this administration And so it's important for you to have authorizing language to be able to do that. And therein lies the legislation that I've done with Representative O'Rourke on allowing other than honorable discharge military personnel, veterans, to be able to have access to mental health care.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, gentleman, for your Mr. Pollock, and you recognized for 5 minutes.